Good morning, everyone. Well, the title of my talk today is The View from Here. Now, before we really get into our talk today and into our topic, I want to look at something. You know, a couple weeks ago, as most of you know, William Shatner was invited by Jeff Bezos to travel into space in one of his new spacecraft. And it was an exhilarating event if you watched it. And at the end of the event, I saw an interview with William Shatner. And as I was watching that interview, a word of wisdom came to me. And I want you to take a look. So the word of wisdom that came to me as I was watching all of that was that, do you realize how many times that monologue, that message, those words, that affirmation was sent out into the universe? It may have been potentially millions of times. So Spirit said to me, is it any wonder to you that William Shatner, aka Captain Kirk, captain of the Starship Enterprise, that he is now the oldest recorded individual to travel into space? And what came up for me then was, Dan, how constant are your prayers? How consistent are the words that you use? And how persistent are you with your affirmations? Something to think about. All right, so there is a question. There's a question that we should be asking ourselves, and it's probably the number one, most important question that we can ask ourselves. And it is this: what is our view from right here? What is our view from right here, from moment to moment, right from where we stand? And there are two views that we should be asking that question of. Well, the first view is this: what is our view of things? Another way of asking that question is, what are we looking at? Another way of asking that question is, what am I seeing out there? And most importantly, what am I agreeing with in terms of what I'm seeing out there? Now, another way of asking that question is, what am I seeing out there that I'm believing to be true? Now, that moves us into another place, into another realm, another arena. That moves us here. And the second question is, what is my view from here? What is my view in my mind? What am I thinking in here about life, about the world? What am I thinking about people? What are my beliefs about other people? Another thing that we should question is, what is my view of my own life? My life, my status, if you will. In other words, what is showing up in my life? So we ask that question, what is the view from here? And why is that such an important question? Why is that the most important question we can ask ourselves? Well, lucky for you, there's someone smarter that we can turn to, which would be Dr. Ernest Holmes in his masterful work, The Science of Mind textbook. And what I marvel at is that our founder can answer this question in literally one paragraph. Let's turn to that, page 278 in the Science of Mind textbook, the very first paragraph. And he says this: remember, We are surrounded by a universal subjectivity, a subjective, creative consciousness which is receptive, neutral, impersonal, always receiving the impress of our thought. And let me add a little word there. Always receiving the impress of our view from here. And this creative consciousness, he says, has no alternative other than to operate directly upon it, thus creating the things which we think. Now, albeit that sums it up, I would be remiss if I didn't share my most favorite part of the Science of Mind textbook. It's on page 29 and 30. One more time, Dr. Holmes explains this important point. And he says this: each is drawing from life what he thinks into it. To learn how to think is to learn how to live. For our thoughts, and may I change the words a little bit, our view in here goes into a medium that is infinite in its ability to do and to be. Man and woman, by thinking, can bring into his or her experience whatsoever he or she desires, if they think correctly. Hold on to that thought. If they think correctly, and becomes a living embodiment of their thoughts. One juicy stuff right there from Dr. Holmes. So then, how do we go about making certain that we are thinking correctly? In other words, how are we making certain that our view of things out there and our view from here are drawing from life peace and joy and happiness and prosperity? And oftentimes, that's kind of where we end up. Those are the things that we ask for: health, prosperity, abundance, joy, peace. But how about exhilarating experiences? When is the last time you had an exhilarating experience? I don't know. What about meaningful and purposeful activities in our lives? What about loving relationships? All of these things. And we have to remember that it is the view from here that is making all of these possible out there. So if we were going to start on a journey of cleaning up our stinking thinking to create a new view, where would we start? Perhaps a good place to start would be our view of the world. I mean, everyone's talking about it. What is our view of the world from where we are right here? Now, I won't regurgitate, if you would, what the world is saying about the world, because I don't wish to even think or utter those thoughts or those words. But let me share with you, because you're stuck with me right now, let me share with you my view of the world, my view. And my view is this: I think that we live in the most exciting time in human history. Absolutely. And one of the things, and you may find this to be odd, but I am excited about the fact that finally, we are realizing that we can't live on this planet without any regard for its well-being. We are moving into an era where we do understand that we are one with our world, that we are connected to this living planet. And we are doing things as a species to change how we live on this planet. I'll give you a few examples. I work for NV Energy, and we have come to the understanding that we can't dig big holes in the planet, yank coal out of it, and burn it to the detriment of the environment to make electricity. So we have decommissioned all of those coal-powered plants. And Warren Buffett has made the commitment that all electricity used in Nevada will be produced by the sun, the wind, and by geothermal sources in the earth. The commitment is that the entire state will be powered by green sources with a nearly non-existent footprint, carbon footprint. Now listen, that is a huge, huge endeavor. It takes resources and time and ingenuity and money. But we are moving an industry from one paradigm to another. It's extraordinary. I met a friend, my friend Tina, for breakfast the other day, and she pulled up in the most technologically advanced vehicle I'd ever seen. And it is run by a battery. And she charges the battery at home when she plugs her car into the house. And by the way, the house is solar powered. That is extraordinary. And just a short few months ago, automaking experts are predicting now at the rate that we are developing and selling electric automobiles, that sometime around 2050, worldwide, all vehicles being sold will be electric powered. That is a huge shift in two industries that have virtually operated the same way for 100 years. One more. In April of this year, aviation giants such as United Airlines, Delta Airlines, have come together and they have formed alliances and they're making investments and they are making the commitment to begin to move the fleet of their aircraft into electric-powered aircraft. This is unheard of technology. It's extraordinary. And people will say, well, why are you boring us with some of these statistics, Dan? Well, first of all, I'm not boring. I'm only kidding. But you have to hear this because this illustrates how amazing we are. We are amazing creatures. We're smart, we're powerful, we're creative, we're resilient. We know how to rise above adversities. And above all things, we are love. Now, sometimes you got to look harder at some of us to see it, but we are just a ball of energy and love. And we do amazing things. So I remind people, if you turn to Scripture, the Holy Bible, the very first book, the very first chapter, we witness God's creation of human beings. And God says, let us make them in our very image and likeness. We are amazing beings, and we are powerful. And what we have been negligent of in terms of the planet, we are going to fix that. We are turning that around. And it's the most exciting thing I can think of. Something to think about. All right. And I will say, as I think about human beings, and I think about the newer human beings, if you would, that are coming onto this planet, they are exciting human beings. They are not in agreement with how we've treated the planet. They are not in agreement with how we are in conflict with one another, especially the conflict we have because of our differences. These young people are finding ways to celebrate who they are, who their neighbor is, celebrate and honor their differences. I think about Cadence. I think about Isabel. I think about Taya. I think about Charlie. And I think about little Naomi. All of you know who I'm talking about. But these young people have a whole different energy, a whole different view of life. And they will change this world, no doubt. Very exciting. So I am excited about the future. And one other thing about the future. I have a very disciplined spiritual practice. And every day I pray for us. I pray and send love and health and peace and wealth to every single person on the planet, to every creature on the planet. I send health and well-being to that round blue ball that's so incredible. I send it health and peace and well-being every day. And guess what? According to the science of mind, how I view the world and the future, how I think about the world and the future, and how I send my energy and my love into this existence, according to the science of mind, I'm doing exactly what I need to do to create the most amazing world possible. Something to think about. So let's take it down a notch. Let's move from, the whole entire world and what's going on to the individual life. Let us suppose that one is struggling with financial lack. One is struggling with dis-ease in their body, perhaps. Maybe there's another that is seeing a lack of success in their business or in their career. What we know is that that person, as they look out into their experiences, they are seeing that idea of not enough. They're seeing that idea that wellness is not present. They see a lack of achievement. Well, that's the view from here. That's the view from out here. That's the view of conditions. But what we know to be true is that for that view to exist out there, there has to be a corresponding view from here. If that exists out there, then within this space, there must be equivalent thoughts. There must be like beliefs. There must be words being expressed that match what's being visible out here. And as students of the science of mind, we know one thing. We know that to change the view out here, we got to change the view in here. And again, I turn to Dr. Holmes, who shows us the way, that shows us practical application, ways that we can apply this teaching in order to change the view in here, which will change the view out there. Let's go, if you would, to page 300. A little bit of reading and discussion. Suppose one wishes more activity in his business, more success. Every day he should see his place filled with people. He should see them looking at and finding pleasure in his merchandise. He He should see them comparing prices and realizing that he is offering good values. He should see them delighted with the service he is giving. He should see his customers cheerful and beaming, expansive, as they enjoy the atmosphere of his place. He should see the uplift which the spirit of his goodwill gives them. Make a mental picture of it all. Create a new view. We are dealing with an intelligence, and we should recognize the power we are working with, realizing our oneness with it, and then we should ask for what we wish and take it. I just am, as I read those words, I just see us being taught to bring our vision into life. There's color there, there's warmth, there's feeling. And what we know is that it is the feeling that is the creative force that is used by the law. It's creating a new view. One more, very quick one, page 302. Now I find this very, very interesting. On page 302, paragraph 2, he says, "It is quite necessary then that the successful businessman should keep his mind on thoughts of happiness, which produce cheerfulness instead of depression." What an interesting way of presenting this, that the successful person must keep their mind on thoughts of happiness, which produce cheerfulness instead of depression. He should radiate joy and should be filled with faith, hope, and expectancy. These cheerful, hopeful attitudes of mind are indispensable to the one who really wants to do things in life. These cheerful, hopeful attitudes of mind are indispensable to the one who really wants to do things in life. How rich is that? So, and I will say, because of my belief system, I turn to Jesus on these matters to gain his perspective. And in the Holy Bible, in the book of Mark, chapter 11, verse 24, Jesus says this, "Therefore I tell you, all the things you pray and ask for, believe that you have received them, and you will have them." So what Jesus is saying here is, if one has a desire, if one has a dream, well, we have to do our work. He says, "Therefore I tell you, all the things you pray for and ask for." So what Jesus is saying is, you have your work to do. You have your spiritual work, your mental work, you have your prayer work. But then he says, there is another ingredient that we need to add to the view in our mind. And it is this, that desire, that dream is already in our lives, is already included in our experience, that it is already part of our lives. And Jesus says, when you have that view, it will surely show up in the view of your experiences. I thought that was really, really, really powerful stuff. So I'd like to show you a wonderful example of this idea of having the correct view, to having that view and watching what the law can do with that. Let's take a look at the video.
There's not a single person on this planet who haven't heard of Starbucks world's biggest coffee house company. But did you know that the former CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, was born and raised in poverty, barely making ends meet? And when things got really tough, he even had to sell his blood a couple of times. This is the success story of Howard Schultz, how he went from living in poverty and struggling for money to survive to transforming Starbucks into a $100 billion company. And he was just a young boy who never stopped dreaming, and here is why you shouldn't stop too. He was born in a very poor family. He spent his childhood living in a small one-bedroom apartment from a public housing project. His father was an army vet and a truck driver and spent most of his life working low-paid jobs. When Howard was only 7 years old, while delivering diapers, his father fell on the ice and broke his leg. And because of this, he was fired from his job. And with no medical insurance and no savings, his family was struggling for money. That image of his father laying on the couch, feeling hopeless, crushed and defeated, left a permanent mark in his memory. It was one of the biggest defining moments in Howard's life. And to get away from all of these problems, he used to sit on the staircase in his building, dreaming of a better life. He played football in high school and earned an athletic scholarship to go to college, but he didn't want to play sports and decided to major in communications. So to pay for college, he had to take student loans and worked many odd jobs to make ends meet. Few times he even had to sell his blood for money to survive. After graduating from college, Howard worked at a ski lodge and as a salesman, but he had a desire to work at Starbucks. At that time, Starbucks had 3 owners and only sold coffee beans. So at the age of 29, after a full year of convincing the owners to hire him, he finally got a job at Starbucks. While on a business trip to Italy, he walked into an Italian coffee shop and he was fascinated by his experience while drinking coffee. He was amazed by the fact that the owners of the coffee shops actually knew their customers and they even called them by their names while serving them coffee. Excited, he traveled back to the US trying to convince the Starbucks owners to accept these incredible new ideas, but the owners rejected him. So Howard quit Starbucks and went on to create his own coffee company called Il Giornale. But he had no money to fund this company. In the course of the year I spent trying to raise money, I spoke to 242 people and 217 of them said no. Try to imagine how disheartening it can be to hear that many times why your idea is not worth investing in. It was a very humbling time. But eventually, enough people believed in his vision and decided to invest in his business. He worked extremely hard to open his first coffee shop where he could replicate the experience he had in Italy and finally implement his ideas. After a few years, Starbucks went bankrupt and Howard bought the company and became CEO of Starbucks. He rebranded his company with the Starbucks name and expanded across the United States. Today, Starbucks has more than 30,000 stores around the world and market value over $100 billion. And Howard has an advice for you. In life, you can blame a lot of people and you can wallow in self-pity, or you can pick yourself up and say, listen, I have to be responsible for myself. I believe life is a series of near misses. A lot of what we ascribe to luck is not luck at all. It's seizing the day and accepting responsibility for your future. It's seeing what other people don't see and pursuing that vision. I feel so strongly that the reason I'm here is I dreamed big dreams. I dreamed the kind of dreams that other people said would not be possible. I cannot offer you any specific secret recipe for success, the perfect plan, how to reach the pinnacle of success in the business. But my own experience suggests that starting from scratch and achieving much more than what I dream about is quite possible. But if you wait for the perfect conditions, you'll never get anything done. But the good thing is, you can make a decision and take control now. Remember something. A year from now, you may wish you had started today. So, what's your story?
So, the time has come that I must ask you the most important question I can ask you. And it's this: what is the view? What is the view from here? The view from right where you stand, from moment to moment. What is the view? When is the last time you dreamed really big dreams? When is the last time that you created a dream or a view that made your heart pound and took your breath away? Well, might I invite you today to allow today to be the day that you create the view for the law that you have always dreamed of creating. And as part of that view, as Jesus instructs, make sure to add that ingredient of it already being yours, already being in your life. And what we've read from both Dr. Holmes and Jesus is that if we have that view, we will surely have our dream. I love you all. Namaste. So let us take a moment and move into prayer. Take a deep breath. And allow my words to be your words. I recognize that all there is one. One power, one presence, one essence, one energy, one infinite loving intelligence. It is the source of all things. I call it God. And what I know to be true is that I am one with the one. And I marvel at how it expresses in and through me, how it expresses its love, brilliance, power, and beauty in such a unique and special way. As I stand in the truth of my being, I realize that I enjoy perfect health, prosperous living, loving and respectful relationships, great success, and a life filled with extraordinary experiences. I know this for myself. And I know this for each and every person in the world. And I know this for this very center, that this center is healthy, enjoys great prosperity, has a vibrant, growing, and expanding ministry and congregation, and has a wonderfully talented and loving spiritual leader. This center brings God's love, beauty, and truth to the most exciting city in the world. And so I give great thanks for the wonderful growth and expansion in every area of my life, in the lives of all people, and the life of this beautiful community. I am so grateful that I am in the flow of divine good, and from moment to moment experience the very best the universe has to offer. And so now I release my word into the perfect law. It has already said yes and has made it so. And so it is. Amen.